Is there any way at all of being able to survive a global internet outage?
Yeah, I think unless you can pivot quite quickly because everyone's so interdependent now.
Are you only as strong as the weakest link in the chain?
It's worth thinking about, well, what is the alternative technology?
At least list all the stuff that you have in the cloud that is business critical.
Okay.
Take a deep breath.
I feel like I haven't done a podcast for ages, but I probably have.
Yeah.
People are probably wishing I hadn't.
We did one last week on AI.
Oh, yeah, we did.
You got a short memory.
Short memory.
You just had a birthday recently. I think it's an age thing.
It probably is, actually. Probably is. But, okay, this will test. This will see whether I've still got my mental powers. Marbles.
Yeah.
Right, think of a number between 1 and 10. Don't tell me. Think of a number between 1 and 10.
I'm glad you told me not to tell you. I was just about to blurt it out. Okay, I'll pick one.
You got a number. Okay, now times that by 9.
Yeah.
Now take each of those digits and add them up.
Mm-hmm.
Now subtract 5.
Mm-hmm.
Now don't tell me, but think of a country that starts with that corresponding number in the alphabet. A equals 1, B equals 2, etc.
Okay, yeah.
Now think of you're doing this a lot faster than a lot of other people do.
That's why you got me.
Now take that country and think of an animal that starts with the last letter of that country.
Yeah.
Now think of a fruit that starts with the last letter of that animal.
Yeah, okay. You're not going to guess this. Go on.
Are you thinking about a kangaroo eating an orange in Denmark?
So you know then that the maths at the beginning. That is very clever. That is very clever. So everyone else thinks Denmark, kangaroo and orange. I guess that's chosen because their last letters are pretty unusual. But the maths at the beginning always gets you back at 4.
Gets you to 4. Yeah. Because you're 9 times table. See, they all add up to 9, don't they, when they're over multiple. Well, I wasn't going to give away my secret.
No,
but now we've blurted it.
Can
We've
use
blurted
it.
it out
They can all use it. Did you get that, everybody? You can impress your kids.
You can impress your kids, impress your friends.
You'll have to listen back to that on half speed, writing it down as you go along. But I did like the fact that you could guess it was Danish kangaroos with oranges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah,
everyone's going to remember that.
You just got to watch out for the koala curveball.
Oh.
My daughter likes to be awkward with this, and I was trying to get one of her friends with it on the car on the way to school, and she was like, say Dominican Republic.
I bet you my son would have gone DRC just to wind things up a bit.
But
Djibouti, that begins with a D.
So yeah. So there's a koala curveball in there.
Okay.
And then you go with apples, so.
Apples or oranges.
So it's
but you're pretty safe with oranges. Okay.
Well, there you go.
This is a new theme then. We're going to come up with the puzzle.
The riddle. Well, more on that soon, actually. We could.
Oh, that's exciting. Well, let's get into the podcast then. Cool. I can't wait. Hello and welcome to another episode of the SME Growth Podcast from Wellmeadow. It's Dave and Rich again.
Hello.
Here we are. With another action-packed episode full of useful or interesting bits and bobs for owners and managers of small and medium-sized enterprises. Now, before we get into this week, we're going to do a quick rundown of what we've been talking about for the last 3. But I don't want people to get scared if they've read the title already for this week, because it's apocryphal. The sky's going to fall in. How we're going to cope. It's not that type of episode, I can assure you. Practical tips.
Imagine if that had happened.
The sky had fallen in.
Before the episode went live.
The thing we're going to talk about.
Never actually occurred.
Global internet failures. Do you think that? Well, if that happens, no one's going to be listening, right? Because they can't access it.
Unless they broadcast us on
Or we
FM.
could post out USB sticks with it on. What would they play it on, though? Send out CDs. I don't know how you do that. So 126 did we say?
126 today. So
which is divisible by 3.
Mm-hmm. Darts finish.
And 9. Yeah, go on. It's going to be. We know darts finishes happen up to about 250 something. 260. 260. Can't be 260.
They're too old now to be the same.
180 is the top, isn't it? I think it goes to about 160. You can do a dart finish, and then they get a bit patchy.
Right.
Go on. So 126 is today. What was last week? 125.
We did another kind of AI update, focused around HubSpot and the ChatGPT connector.
Yeah, that was a bit of new news. back in that week, wasn't it?
So lots of exciting things happening in that space.
And just talking about the data connectors generally and how people are or should be using this tech. Okay, that was 125. 124
was key things about key account management with Dave Ventura. Came in as a guest.
David Ventura. He was a great guest. Superb. Yeah, thanks, David, for coming up for that. That was a really good episode and got lots of good feedback on that. Talking of good feedback, before episode 124, I think we got some of our best feedback for it was 121, 122, and 123.
It was the Godfather trilogy. It was the Godfather trilogy of the SME Growth Podcast.
It was.
With many godfathers and godmothers.
Godmothers. Very good.
Contributing their pearls of wisdom on business leadership.
The Just One Thing trilogy, which is already a contradiction in terms. Because we had 3 episodes and each of them had lots of just one things in them, but lots of pearls of wisdom from people we knew. So yeah, they were. I think we're going to bunch those 3 together and count them up. So they were the previous 3.
I suppose as well, lots of people who contributed had more than just one thing to say, which probably says something about the business owner entrepreneur mindset.
Yes, they refused to follow instructions. Just give me one thing. I can't.
Like, you are going to listen to what I'm going to say.
I'm going to give you all these things.
So, but no, good stuff in that.
Yeah, no, it was. So we've had a good run recently, and we've just hit another milestone on our YouTube viewing as well. Lots of noughts on the end of that. I think 100,000 views or something or other. So that was all good stuff as well. So we're
thanks, Mum.
Flying along. Did you have got time for anything else?
I know. Full-time job for it.
Reruns of you on the podcast. I was talking to one of our clients the other day who I've actually been on a business trip with this week, and he said he was getting a bit of detox, so he was listening to the podcast just to catch up while he was in the car to and from work. And you had a meeting this week as well with someone who'd been watching the podcast.
Yeah, someone who listens to the podcast on the way to work. I suppose if it was almost like if you were in the car with him, it was almost like a live version.
God, flipping it. Imagine we could have had
go in the back seat.
Sell tickets for that.
If anybody wants a live podcast in their car, we will sit in the back seat.
Is this the James Corden carpool podcast karaoke?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Imagine what that would look like.
Podcast, yeah. Gosh.
So so this was my idea this week, which is unusual. Normally you come up with a lot of the ideas for these episodes, and what triggered it was I was reading the Sunday Times last weekend. Digital edition,
which very fancy.
They go on and on about that. I tell you, the price of that's gone up as well, so think you twice. Anyway, digital edition, Matthew Syed, columnist. He was the guy that was the UK table tennis champion, and he appears on Radio 5. Really well read. Yeah. And he did a great book called Bounce, which talks about the 10,000 hours of expertise you have to have, or practice you have to have to become an expert. Anyway, I thoroughly recommend Bounce from Matthew Syed. But his column on that week was all about the fact that the Russians are blaming the UK for that spectacular drone attack that the Ukrainians pulled off, blowing up lots of their planes. They said only the US or the UK could possibly have had the tech to do that, and the USA have denied it, and the UK haven't. So his point was, watch out, businesses in the UK, because Russia will respond, and the way they will respond is to hit business through cyber attacks and maybe undersea cables. So that got me to thinking, yikes. In the old days, that wouldn't have bothered you too much. We would have wheeled out the fax machine, dusted it off.
Wheeled it out, it would have been still in effect.
It was still there, like it is in the NHS, apparently. Apparently Putin only uses faxes. Yeah. Maybe you told me.
This is, again, I think we've mentioned it before on the podcast, but we're no longer insured for a missile falling on our...
That was weird, wasn't it, when you looked at that?
On our building. And also no longer, I don't think, insured if the building burns down and it's been plugged, like dodgy heat has been plugged into a smart Wi-Fi device.
Oh, right. Well, that's a bit less sinister. That's just moving with the times and saying we don't trust smart Wi-Fis. Or are they saying
they can be hacked?
Someone else can hack it.
Yeah, right. Because they all come from...
But the missiles one, did he point out the changes and list it explicitly?
Listed as exclusion.
You are no longer covered for missiles.
But that's what, there was a major general said in the news the other day about the fact that, Brits should prepare for missile.
Really?
Whatever.
Did he?
I'm pretty sure.
Well, you remember there was the power outage in Spain and Portugal. It was only about a month ago, wasn't it? But it lasted a good 24 hours or whatever it was, 48 hours. I'll have to look that up. But anyway, it lasted quite a while. And a lot of people just said, great, a couple of days off work. It was sunny.
Yeah.
They weren't moaning. But clearly the industry rather ground to a halt because nothing could happen.
Well, that's like the start of COVID though, wasn't it?
Yeah, the very beginning. But I suppose at least you could say the whole world was affected then. Well, not that it made it any easier. Look at the debt we've got and furlough and all that business. That was very localised. But it got me to thinking, is there any way at all of being able to survive a global internet outage, or let's say a nationwide internet outage, or a cyber attack that takes out major swathes of industry rather than it's just you. If it's just you, if it's just your business, I think we've all got enough business continuity plans where you could just all send everybody home and all that sort of thing. Your production facility might be a bit affected if it's internet enabled. As long as you've got power, you're probably okay. But I was thinking if it was nationwide, so your suppliers are affected, your customers are affected, all your employees are affected at home, could you actually do anything to cope? So that was the remit for today's podcast. Not to get too alarmist about it, but just say, if it happens, let's imagine it goes down for a week. The beginning of the week, you don't know how long it's going to last for, right? What would you do?
So this is combining quite a few of my favourite things, actually.
I remember when I suggested it, your eyes lit up. Ooh, a conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy theory.
We love one of them.
Prepping,
love a bit of prepping.
Business. This is like, this is the Venn.
So we pulled together.
If there was a Venn diagram of things that I'd like to talk about,
eating
this would be one of those
eating
things.
Undercooked meat on your barbecue would be like a bit of red meat.
Absolutely.
If you could have combined, well, you probably have to after the conspiracy theories happened. You're going to have to go out and shoot your dinner, aren't you? Really?
Well, I almost did that last night, but I probably shouldn't talk about that.
You don't really eat squirrels.
Shouldn't talk about that online.
So we're in the overlap here of Richard's favourite things: conspiracy theories, business, and prepping. So that's what we started
I had
with.
to prep as a business for this to happen.
Well, first off, do you think you could do it?
Yeah, because I think, well, I'll caveat that. Yes, of course, I think you can because businesses survived. There was commerce before the internet.
Yeah.
Younger listeners may struggle to comprehend that. But
was there a time before the internet, Grandad?
Before the internet. So yeah, you could do, but I think there are now obviously businesses that exist because of the internet.
Right.
And solely rely upon the internet. So they might struggle.
They would almost certainly struggle, yep.
But yeah, I guess there'd be major disruption.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I wonder whether I was just thinking then. I wonder whether you think there might be lots of job losses, but all of a sudden you'd need more postmen, right?
Well, it depends how long it lasts for. Yeah, because you'd have to correct, wouldn't you? I remember near us there were some building works earlier in the year. They demolished a building and we lost power for a week, but it affected the shopping centre, which is on the other side of the demolition works. And all the shops at that level had to close the doors because their EPOS terminals didn't work. Well, that in the short term, that might have to happen, right? But surely they could have found a way around it. You could take cash.
So in my head, I've kind of got a Mad Max scenario going on. So do I need to dial this back?
Oh, yeah, okay. I like the thought.
On a scale of outage, from Mad Max to shut for a day.
Have a day off.
We're somewhere. Have a day off. We're somewhere.
I think when you get beyond a month, you're into Mad Max territory.
Right, okay.
So let's dial it down a little bit.
Dial it down.
We're almost trying to be sensible enough for your average business continuity plan thing to cope.
Yeah, I mean, I think it obviously depends on your business, doesn't it? I think people would. You would adapt. It depends, yeah.
Do you think it matters more, not about what you do in isolation, but what your customers and suppliers do as well? Are you only as strong as the weakest link in the chain?
Yeah, I think unless you can pivot quite quickly because everyone's so interdependent now, aren't they? Think about how many businesses use the internet and then is it a core function that they need the internet for? So I suppose if you're manufacturing something, so long as you're not a really digitally IoT type of led factory, then you probably could carry on making things.
As long as you've got raw materials.
Raw materials, getting them out the door.
Well, a lot of factories would have a raw material supply that would last them probably a week unless they're just in time operation. Maybe more.
So I think you could carry on, but then it's around, well, how do you take orders and how do you...
And your haulage companies need to deliver the stuff and the customers need to receive it. And you've got to invoice them because you don't just want to give it all away.
Whereas clearly if you're an e-commerce business, then you're out straight away, aren't you?
So let's assume then that at least you're not totally dependent on, the internet isn't your business. Your business is something else that involves physical goods or services delivered by people. And the internet is an enabler. It's the thing that does all the other stuff. It manages your HR records, you take your orders, do your accounts, do your invoicing, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what's just turned off. So I think, it's doable. The question is it easy enough to put the contingency plans in place now that you're going to be bothered to do it? given what everybody will presume to be the
Well,
very small risk?
I think there's some good practice anyway. So I was talking to someone yesterday about this, just from a sales process point of view, of saying all of the tools. I like to list out all of the tools that we've got for our sales marketing in order of when they get used in the process.
Yep.
So that you can see, well, what are we using? What aren't we using? We talked before about cleaning off SaaS tools and things that you're not, that technical debt and all that type of thing. But so if you took your whole business and said, well, what products are we using? Where's the data? Have we got backups? Have we got this? Have we got that?
At least have a list of the systems you're using, right? The business critical ones.
Business critical. You don't, even if you're not, that's probably just a good bit of governance and housekeeping just to have that list, regardless of whether or not we're heading for.
Yeah, because you could have other less apocalyptic events where that could be useful.
Yeah.
So step one then, at least list all the stuff that you have in the cloud that is business critical.
Yeah.
Right, which isn't everything. Maybe some people are using Grammarly in the corner, and it won't matter if that disappears for a day or two.
Yeah.
Well, you won't be sending emails anyway, will you? So
exactly.
It's you can get someone to check your memo.
Check your memo. Check your apostrophes.
Buy one a dictionary. What's that, Grandad? So we could probably cope without that. But you want a list of the business critical ones. So they're likely to be your accounting system.
Yeah.
Maybe your broader ERP system if you've got other stuff, stock management and things. From our point of view, it would be the CRM system. That's where all your customer records are. Your HR systems with all your employee records.
Yeah.
At least that, right?
Yeah.
And key phone numbers of your delivery company and stuff. So you need a bit of an audit of which one's using.
Yeah.
And then I wonder how easy each of those would prove to be if you wanted to have a scheduled backup on a cloud system. Because when we all buy cloud systems, we're almost buying into this dream, aren't we? That it's always on.
Always backed up and always.
And they back it up. Well, there's no point them backing up if the internet's gone down and I can't get access to their backup.
But it depends where the server is as well, doesn't it? So you could have a backup. We might not be able to access it, but the actual software is being backed up.
Yeah, but let's say it's been nicely backed up. So we lost it. We can't use it. Now, HubSpot, I know, because I've just done it, has got a backup facility. You push the button, it creates a big zip file with all of your data in it, and you download it. Now, you might not download it, but it expires after 14 days. So there's no point otherwise unless you're going to download it, right? So you download it, you've got a local hard drive copy of it then. Now, do you want to put that on your laptop? Possibly not a good idea, bit of a risk then. But you've got to think, where do I put it that it's safe? So if I just put it somewhere on the local area network, then all those permissions I bothered setting up to stop people accessing it within HubSpot are suddenly blown open because someone can just go and have a look at the zip file. So it has to go somewhere that you can access it and then use it. You want something by way of a network of some sort so that multiple people can use it when it's there. And you probably want your IT people to work out what are the protocols. If we've got static databases and people start doing stuff to it, how are we ever going to recover?
Yeah.
Do we leave it as read-only and you make a separate log of all the changes? Because we're assuming computers still work here, right? We still got power.
Yeah.
It's just been with the internet. But then I started looking at what apps there are on the HubSpot marketplace, and you can get ones that do a scheduled daily download. And some of them are $5 a month. They're not very well reviewed, but by the time you get to $20, $30 a month, you're getting into well-reviewed, many thousands of times downloaded apps. So if you're out there using a cloud-based thing like a CRM, like HubSpot, there's probably an equivalent.
Yeah.
So for the sake of each of them, so let's say $20, $30 a month, you can probably get a daily download into a big zip file, into a place that you've asked for it to be downloaded. So that's probably a good first start, right? Find out all these systems and then get a static snapshot of the data taken every day.
Yep.
Okay, so internet's gone out. You go there, you think, it's all right, no problem. It's okay, Mr. Mannering, don't panic. Is a cultural reference that will be lost on anyone under 50. And then you say, what do we do with that then? We've got all this data. How do we
use it?
Do stuff? Yeah.
Because we used to just push a button and stuff happened.
So I suppose without coming up with a documented workflow for everything that everybody does everywhere, you've got to work priority order, 80-20. What are the key things we need to be able to do? Well, you've probably got to be able to take orders, make something, dispatch it, invoice it, and pay your staff.
Yeah.
Pay suppliers, order stuff from your suppliers. I was hoping that was going to be a short list, but it's not, is it? But come up with those, let's say, dozen to start with. Would that be sufficient? you could probably get away with. If you had
Well, I
those
guess
basic
it's,
things.
yeah, I suppose it depends on who you've got around and be different for every business, won't it? But again, I think some of these things aren't probably bad things to do. I mean, recently, it's kind of on topic actually, I went to Scotland's best kept secret, advertised all over the place, which was a nuclear bunker. Very interesting. And decommissioned now, clearly. I haven't got top secret clearance or anything.
Which you've just blown.
Don't panic.
Hang on. As well as knowing we're not covered for missile strikes, you've also got access to a nuclear bunker.
Okay. But no, it's a listening post after the Cold War, World War II, Cold War era. And it was quite interesting actually to just look at the systems. I was looking at the systems they had in the various war rooms, and they had in the main control area a desk for every kind of government department. So you had agricultural people and telecoms and military branches and housing people, and so everyone who was a major service had a desk and a representative in that kind of war command room.
So all comms went through one person.
They had one. So if you were in that industry, whoever the agricultural representative was, that was the person. They had one person in there that was doing that, and then the minister of state, or whoever, secretary of state, or whoever it would have been, home secretary probably, I would imagine, or whoever, foreign.
Yeah.
Had their own room that overlooked that room, so there was a window, and they had their bed in there and everything. Everyone else had dormitories and things, but it was just quite interesting to look around and go, how did they sort of plan all this? Because the idea was if there was a nuclear
you are getting on really into your stride now, aren't you?
then they would be first warning, early warning service and all this. And then all of the BT exchange kind of stuff went through there. TV comms, so the BBC had something in there as well to manage, auntie tells us all to stay inside and all that. So but I was looking at it from the point of view of going, what systems would you if this was a business, what kind of KPIs have they got knocking around? What sort of displays have they got on the wall and things like that? Because I thought, someone's put a bit of thought into this,
right? About this, and they used to think a lot more about contingency planning, didn't they? As we found out, they wound that all down just before COVID, and we got caught out.
So
have you taken inspiration? Are we going to have? We're going to turn our podcast studio into a nuclear bunker. We could dig underneath.
Well, they had 3 meter thick concrete walls. So tarmac built it after the war.
Yeah, wow.
Very interesting. And then the way that even the stuff came in, the drivers of the raw materials couldn't drive into the site. They had to park at the entrance. Someone else would drive it in to unload, and then they'd drive it back out and someone would pick it up. So I think there's quite a few things like that.
Right. So go on, then we could now
think about
distill
how do you
distill your inspiration from that then. Here we are. We've got a local computer with all the data on it in readable format. We've got laptops that are working. They just can't communicate to the outside world. Phones still work. I think it's fair to assume in our scenario that phones are still working.
Pigeon.
Well, we haven't got fax machines, but if we had one.
Well, I actually thought this before.
There's no point having one though, is there?
If we got the only one, why is no one getting the orders? But I did actually look, because I thought, can you still buy a fax machine? And you can buy a fax machine.
Well,
and I thought, why would we not buy a fax machine? They're like 40, 50 quid.
Yeah, because no one else has got one.
But if in that event, though, there would be a run.
Now, you mentioned pivot earlier.
There'd be a run.
Do you say, how do we carry on doing our business? Or do you say, sod that for a game of soldiers? Park that. There's now other needs that we have to satisfy. And maybe it's printing carbon copy duplicate books because everyone's going to need them. Or I've got a warehouse full of fax machines here. They're suddenly going to be valuable.
Well, I thought what would be, for 50 quid or whatever they cost to get a fax machine, if you haven't got one, just have one, stick it in. We talked before about having a bundle. We had what was that idea we had about coming up with a bag, like a grab bag?
Oh, for the business continuity
planning.
It's got some high-vis things in it.
What if you had,
phone.
And the phone numbers for who to go and a couple of burners and all that. But that sort of thing, you wouldn't obviously have a fax machine for that. But for this type of scenario. Yeah.
But it only works if you've also got ones to give to your key other suppliers and customers.
Well, let's say you've got a stash of 10, and all of a sudden fax machine prices go.
There'd be £1,000 each.
You could probably get. We wouldn't be working in pounds then, would we? It'd be bread loaves and
cigarettes. Well, that's interesting. What would be the currency?
The currency, bartering, wouldn't we?
Yeah, be those little shells they used to use.
So, but anyway, joking aside, it's worth thinking about. Well, what is the alternative technology? So
how do we take orders then? you could have a fax machine. If you've got a warehouse full, you're going to give some to your customers and your suppliers and what have you. Or you just rely on the fact people still ring each other.
Yeah,
but you need a form to write it down. What do you want again? What's the part number of that? I don't know.
Yeah.
What describe it to me. How many do you want? Okay, I've got a price list here. Because we've still got data. That's what I'm trying to, I'm not imagining that everything's gone, you can't access everything.
Well, do you think there'd be a lot more to and fro in people?
There'll be a lot more phone calls being made. You got to check stuff. You got to explain it. Can't just send a PDF, can you? Postal will probably pick up. So you need a stash of stamps, maybe, assuming the postal service was carrying on. There's no reason why they wouldn't.
No.
Your phones, definitely, if they're still working. But you probably need things like an order form to take down the details on. Another thing that struck me as well with your suppliers, unless you're going to have a lot of cash in the building, which is probably not a good idea for other risk management purposes, at least have a checkbook.
Yeah.
Have we got a checkbook?
Yeah, we've got quite a few.
Where have you hidden them then? I haven't seen them.
Because they kept sending them and we never use them. So.
Okay. Oh, there you go. So have a checkbook. So at least then I thought, you see, for your suppliers and your employees, maybe you can't access online banking to actually give them money.
Yeah.
But at least if you can give them a check and people still have faith in the fact that the government will solve this problem and we're going to come out of this in a few days' time.
Which is a lot of faith with this
Again,
government. But anyway,
this is a scenario I'm planning here, right?
Yeah.
You've still got phones, you've still got power, and we still believe in the government.
Yeah.
This is all
hypothetical then.
Right? But the only thing that's gone wrong is the internet. Everything else is okay.
Yeah.
And you've had some reassuring Starmer announcement saying, don't worry, don't panic. We're going to have it up and running again in a week's time. Don't take the week off. So I thought having a checkbook would be a good idea.
Well, also, I'm just thinking now, just thinking about the phones. So our phones don't work in this building unless we've got the Wi-Fi on. Not very well, at least. So I don't know how many people that affects because we don't tend to use our landline.
A lot of people have given up on landlines.
Landlines.
But we do still have a landline. We just don't have a phone plugged into it.
Yeah.
Have we thrown the phone away? Quick, go look at the bin.
Get the phones.
Get the phone out. Maybe we need a basic phone to plug in.
But you might need more phones, right? So you might need more. So we would only have one. We've only got one phone. It's still knocking around somewhere.
Yeah.
But at the moment, we all use our mobiles and we're on internet.
All the time.
No internet. We've all got to have a handset.
We'll have to queue up at the payphone. But like in the old days, when you wanted to ring your mate at someone's house, you've got to wait and you keep ringing, it's engaged, wait till you get in. And then they get nagged by their dad because he wants the phone and you got to queue up.
20p for a phone call.
We are really alienating our younger users here. I haven't got a clue what we're talking about. So phones, you might well at least need to make sure you've got a landline coming into the building that has got a plug-in phone. At least got something to take orders and place orders. You need to be able to post stuff.
The other thing was Starlink still working. Something like Starlink, sat phone, Starlink.
Well, yeah, what's gone wrong with the internet? Let's say in this scenario that Matthew's side was depicting, it is a focused attack on the UK. Then yes,
sea cable
still working.
Yeah,
cable's been cut in the sea, or they've done something to do the ISPs.
So in the kind of bunker room in your building, you've got a fax machine, you've got Starlink.
I'm less convinced by the fax machine, unless you buy more than one. But Starlink, you need to see the sky. We haven't got a top floor office.
We'd have to find somewhere, but you could relocate. Maybe you've got to have a somewhere else, shared office or something.
So wherever we've got,
you've got Starlink, so you can still get the internet. So those people who've got Starlink, competitive advantage there, right?
Oh, as long as your customers got it. See, back again. Do you buy a box full?
Yeah.
Put them in the warehouse. Fax machines, don't need them anymore. You've got Starlink.
Imagine you put the whole pack together, and when this happens, you'd be like, right, okay, 50 grand.
We used to send a hamper to our customers, didn't we, for Christmas? No, we could send them a
fax machine,
apocalypse survival kit.
And but that was like COVID, though, wasn't it? People who were well positioned in COVID, they made a lot of money out of it because they had something that people needed during an emergency, and they profited from it. So we're not advocating profiteering, but yeah, interesting thought experiment, though, isn't it? So
identify your systems, get your regular downloads in so that at any moment you've always got something that's no more than a day out of date. It's still digital. I'm not suggesting that everyone prints everything off every day, flipping it, going backwards a bit, but assuming you can still use a laptop to read stuff, you've got all that data, you've got phones that are still working, you take orders, you run your shop floor like normal, IoT devices accepted, like you said, you've got a checkbook to ring up suppliers and place orders, so you still get more raw materials coming in. You've got a checkbook to pay your employees. maybe they'd want to get paid weekly or something, or daily until their confidence resumes. You want a dispatch book, you need a little duplicate book at the back door to say we've shipped this to Fred Blogs, and you keep a copy so you can invoice them.
Whiteboard production. So flip charts, whiteboards. If you've no longer got a kind of Kanban system on Trello or HubSpot or wherever.
Yeah, everyone would be panicking with that, wouldn't they?
What would you, if you've got a magnetic whiteboard or a...
Well, you do love a whiteboard.
I do love a whiteboard.
Yeah. I bet you people have still got whiteboards. Don't they use them so much, maybe? Flip charts. They're handy.
Flip charts. Paper. But again, just having those things knocking around. Like, if this happens, when this happens, if this happens, you won't be able to get your hands on a whiteboard.
No.
Or any of these
Just like you couldn't get webcams when COVID happened. Everyone wanted them.
So, yeah. So
the bit that gets me in thinking about this, you could have all that in place, but if you wanted to really test it, how would you ever say, right, we're going to have a day next week when we're going to pretend the internet's gone out?
That's easy. Anyone with kids this day, the best punishment is just tell them you're going to turn the Wi-Fi off.
You just pull the plug.
So just turn it off, yeah.
Okay.
And everyone thinks there's an outage. If you want family time, good tip for family time, right?
Right.
But then like in the old, when the power went off and everyone would
You don't just want to turn it off because someone will work out to turn it on. You need a clever way of doing something, cutting a wire somewhere, or hiding a
clever
special...
way of cutting a wire. you just either unplug it or change the password or something, can't you?
Yeah,
it's kind of like, but it's like how people used to huddle around the candles when we'd have a blackout or something.
Yeah.
And it was almost like, isn't this nice actually?
Yeah.
We have a bit of time together as a family.
Party atmosphere.
And we've
Which in Portugal, Spain, they said it was great. Some of them.
Yeah.
Great. We're down the beach, we're having a laugh. It's great.
So,
but the only people that really survived were those with enough cash that they could go and buy food at restaurants, buy a drink from the off licenses, had their landlines. And FM radios as well. Apparently the FM radio still gets shit broadcasting.
I mean, I suppose, how would you, it's whether a business has got time to try this, isn't it? But I don't know, what would we do?
Well, I suppose this is what I was trying to get the balance. How much of this would be reasonable for a business to listen to this podcast, have its conscience awoken a little bit to think, oh my goodness, I wonder, you're not going to go to the nth degree in preparing for bunker mentality because we're all thinking that's a 1 in a million shot, no matter what Matthew Syed predicts that it could happen next week. Don't panic, folks. We don't think that. But you could take some reasonably simple steps to make it easier to survive.
I think what would be a good way of testing this would be to turn it into a corporate team day. You'd have to have a company set up and say, we'll take your processes.
Yeah.
Not every nuance, but get your team in, see if they can work together, and we'll do an evaluation. At the end of it, we'll have a meal and we'll do a thing. So,
good thought. All right. Well, we could go to the nth degree on details of these plans. I think we've covered the basics, though, of starting to get people to think if, and let's say it's not Russia, it's another bad actor, or it's just an accident or something, but we lose the internet across a large swathe of your business empire, customers and suppliers included, and employees, then at the very least make sure that you've got some digital versions of the data, you've listed which systems are relying on it, and you've got paper-based alternatives, and a checkbook, and a fax machine. And a Starlink.
Yeah.
All right. Should we go and do that now then? Well, I did take a backup of our HubSpot as we came in, but on its own, that's probably not enough. I thought I'll get Gary to write one of his clever little API routines that will take a data dump every day.
No, it's an interesting thought experiment. We always think these things never happen. Black Swan event and all that.
Yeah.
But
well, it was as I was reading it, I thought, you know what? He may be right. And if he is, we're going to look daft, aren't we, having done a podcast on it and then not prepared ourselves. So if you're listening out there and you're one of our customers, well, they would, because we're going to be prepared. We're going to ring them up and say, don't panic. We've got a plan in place. Phones are still working. We can still help you. Just not digitally.
Well, you just pivot to another business, isn't it?
We're going to sell fax machines.
You sell fax machines and whiteboards.
And Starlink.
Be like
disaster recovery plans.
Yeah, exactly. And
closing the door.
Corporate away days that involve no internet.
Yes, exactly. You might be better off just selling beer.
Yeah, exactly.
We could do that. All right. Thanks again for listening then to another episode of the SME Growth Podcast. Slightly off the wall today, but I hope there's an element of seriousness in all of this. Are we thinking not just about business continuity in the broader sense, but against the very real possibility that we just lose the internet for a non-trivial amount of time, and the fact that there are fairly basic things we can do just to protect ourselves, or at least give us a fighting chance of being able to carry on in business. So thanks a lot for listening. If that's piqued your interest, maybe listen into some of our other episodes and maybe tell some of your friends about it as well. Tell them in the pub, drop them an email while the internet is still working, while you've still got the chance. And don't say you didn't hear it first. We'll come back if it happens and we'll say we foretold this whole thing. Thanks a lot for listening. Good luck with your business.